Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Welcome back. It is Erev Shabbos, Parsha Shemos, and I'd like to share with you a brief Dvar Torah from this week's Parsha. So in Parsha Shemos, we're introduced to the heroes, some of the heroes of the Jewish people, Moshe Rabbeinu, Aaron HaKohen, but there's a group of individuals, other heroes, who sometimes get overlooked. And that's at the very end of the Parsha, after Paro was asked for some time off, and Paro decides that we're lazy, and therefore he's going to withhold straw. But he tells us that we still have to produce the same quota of bricks. So the Jewish people try, and they fan out throughout the land to collect the straw and to still try and produce the same amount of bricks, but we were simply unable to do so. So the pasuk continues, and it says, "Vayuku shotrei b'nei Yisrael," that the shotrim, the officers of the Jewish people, the Jewish officers, were beaten. Asher samu aleim nokse Paro, the ones who were put in charge by the Egyptian taskmasters of Paro. The Egyptian taskmasters are beating the Jewish officers because the Jewish officers are unable and really unwilling to push their brothers and sisters to try and produce any more bricks. What happens to these officers? What happens to these incredible men who were willing to take a beating on behalf of their fellow Jew? So fast forward a number of years, the Jewish people are in the desert, and we are complaining, as we were wont to do. And we're complaining about the mun. And Moshe Rabbeinu turns to Hashem, and he says, Hashem, I can't do it anymore. I can't carry this people alone. And Hashem agrees. Hashem says, you're right. Esfali shivamish, go ahead and gather to me 70 men, says the pasuk in Parshas Baloscha. Who are these 70 men? Ziknei Yisrael, elders of the Jewish people. Asher yadata, whom you know, Moshe. Kihem ziknei ha'am, that they're the elders of the people. Vishotrav, and its officers. There's that word, vishotrav. Says Rashi, it's the same shotrim. It's the same officers. Those officers who had mercy on their brothers and sisters, who had mercy on their fellow Jew, and were willing to take a beating on their behalf, they are the ones who are now to be appointed into leadership positions of the Jewish people. Ata yismanu b'gdulasim. Now they should be appointed into positions of greatness, just as they had suffered in their pain. It's a prerequisite. A prerequisite to becoming a leader of the Jewish people is a willingness to have empathy and to take a beating on behalf of those very same people. That is what made them shotrim, and that's what made them ultimately the Sanhedrin of the Jewish people. We find a similar idea by Moshe Rabbeinu himself. You know, Moshe Rabbeinu, the pasuk says, after he's weaned, and he's brought to Paro's daughter, he's brought to the daughter of Paro. There the pasuk says, Vayigdal anar, Vayigdal hayeled, that the child had grown older, he grew up, V'tivyeh lebas Paro, so she brought him to the daughter of Paro. And the very next pasuk, it says, Vayihi bayam mahem, and it was in those days, Vayigdal Moshe, that Moshe grew up. We know he grew up. He grew up in the very previous pasuk. Says the Chassam Sofer, that second Vayigdal Moshe should not be translated as Moshe grew up, but rather, and Moshe became a gadol. Moshe became great. Why? What happened there that Moshe became great? He's still a young man in Paro's palace. Because the pasuk continues and it says, Vayetze el echav, because he went out of the palace to his brothers, Vayar besivlosam, and he saw their suffering, he saw their pain. Rashi says, Nasan ena v'libo liyos meitzar aleim. Moshe Rabbeinu was willing to be empathic. He was willing to care. He was willing to step out of the lap of luxury. You know, he had everything anyone could want at that time, surrounded by opulence and power, in the palace of the most powerful man in the world. And he walked out, and he left that behind, Vayar besivlosam, and he saw their suffering. That's what made Moshe Rabbeinu. Fast forward just a little bit, in the next parak, it says that Moshe Rabbeinu is pasturing the sheep, and he sees the burning bush, and Hashem sees that he sees the burning bush. Vayar Hashem kisar liros, and Hashem sees that he had turned to look. Vayikra elav elokim mitoch hasneh. So Hashem called to him from the bush. What does it mean that Hashem saw that he had turned to see? Who wouldn't look to see a burning bush? Says the Medrash, no, you're misunderstanding. It's not that he turned to see the bush. It's that he turned 60 years earlier when he was in the palace of Paro, and he was willing to leave that behind. Vayar Hashem kisar liros. Hashem saw that he turned to see back then. And therefore, says the Medrash, Vayikra elav mitoch hasneh. That's why Hashem called to him from the bush. Because this was a man who was a gadol. This was an individual who was big. He was big because he cared about others. That's what made the Shotrim the Sanhedrin, and that's what made Moshe Rabbeinu. I wish you all a wonderful Shabbos, and I look forward to seeing you soon.